guys ever heard the phrase, I am who you want me to be, or I will be whatever you want me to be? Or I am who you think I am, or I am who you say I am? That right there would be the case of the lady that you guys are seeing right here in the B-roll footage, Mrs. Candace Owens, who went on the Theo Vaughn podcast as well and was actually told by Theo Vaughn that her children, by the way, the photo that you're seeing of her and her husband, that right there will be coming up over the course of this video, looked like Anthony Smith, UFC fighter Anthony Smith. Speaking of UFC, I do have a take coming out on a particular fighter that will probably be released this weekend. And of course, there'll be a lot more sports takes to come. But I want to stay on topic here and talk about Mrs. Candace Owens. Now, the reason why I'm calling her Mrs. Candace Owens is because obviously Mrs. Candace Owens is married. She's married to a guy from England, a guy who's the son of a lord. His name is George Farmer. And of course, when you watch this video, you'll probably be thinking to yourself, what does this matter in the grand scheme of the conversation? Well, it matters because of the connections to Mr. Andrew Tate. So, will this right here be a hit piece on Mrs. Candace Owens? By the way, I'm calling her Mrs. Candace Owens because she's obviously married. She's married to a guy from England. His name is George Farmer. We'll be talking about him as well over the course of this video. And of course, there's also a video that I'll be linking in the description box, which I pulled some from, which I've also linked in the past two videos that I've done on Andrew Tate in their description boxes as well, those two videos, from this guy called Too Lazy to Try, who made a pretty good video on the connections that she has with the Tate brothers. Now, if you're an Andrew Tate fan and you come across this video, you're probably going to think that I'm going to be spending this entire video talking crap about him. No, that is not the case. I've given you guys my thoughts on Mr. Andrew Tate. I've told you what I agree with, what I don't agree with, or what I don't endorse about him, and what I think is good about him. I've talked about that on several occasions, so for the most part, just go ahead and know that I'm, for the most part, pretty daggone neutral on him for the most part. You guys can go back and watch the previous videos that I've done on him, which, of course, did not fly up the algorithm for some reason, but that is okay. You guys know me. I'm all about just making content and getting the points out there to whatever audience I can, because obviously I'm a content creator who made a lot of mistakes in the early going of his content creation. I don't think I need to rehash all that. But before we fully dig into Candace Owens, her connections, and some of the things that she has said, and what I honestly believe about Mrs. Candace Owens, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you guys are still subscribed. Also, cut the notifications on for the channel, so that way you guys are notified when the videos are released. Also, to go on top of that there, if you are new here and you like this type of content, please consider subscribing. It is the best way to support this channel for free. I'd like to get 2,000 subscribers before the end of the month of March. And also, to go on top of that, please hit the like button. Please hit that thumbs up button, so that way the video will stand a better chance in the algorithm of reaching a much, much larger audience. You guys can also follow me on Facebook, and you guys can also follow me on my Twitter, my X. Don't worry, I'll leave links to both in the description box. But let us go ahead and dive into this. So, Candace Owens, back in like 2013, 2014, and I think it was Jeremy at the Quartering. I wouldn't say that he uncovered it, but he definitely brought it up during the whole Steven Crowder beef, the beef that she was having with Crowder in the Daily Wire. I'm not going to rehash that right now because I originally wanted to for the purpose of this video, but then I realized it wasn't important, or at least the context of it, or what I had said in it was going to make the video much longer than it needed to be. It was re-uncovered that at one point in time she used to work for a company, she used to work for an organization. It was a movement to actually dox people. Then I remembered this little bit here from the other day on her show.
This moment is super interesting for the left and the right because, and I was having this call with Taylor Lorenz, formerly of the Washington Post, this morning.
So you've been talking to serial doxer Taylor Lorenz. That was Ariana Jacob who actually posted that, or reminded everybody that Candace Owens is going through a really, really wild transformation from her conservatism. But if you guys go back to her original state, she was very, very much a leftist. Then she was red pill black. Then, of course, she broke out on her own, and, of course, she was very, very much a conservative influencer. Now she claims she's a Christian influencer, even though she can't quote a single Bible verse, which is something that her followers who claim that she's a Christian or a good Christian, you might want to think about before you fully embrace her. By the way, I don't have a problem with Candace Owens. I think Candace Owens is a very, very smart lady. I just think that, I just feel that what I said at the very beginning of the video is exactly the truth about her. She is who the hell she needs to be at any given time. I'll give you some examples over the course of this video. I know I just kind of let the cat out of the bag on how I really and truly feel about her, but we'll get to that here soon. So, here's the thing. Then she works for PragerU. PragerU, by the way, is run by Dennis Prager. And of course, that bit that you guys saw in the very, very top, she was interviewing a Muslim American who's pro-Israel. So she took the pro-Israel stance at one point in time. Now, people can change their minds. We all know this. This is great. But of course, given when the campus protests happened after October the 7th, she took the side of the protesters, saying that they had the right to protest, which of course they did in fact have the right to protest. However, when protests become locking people out of their classrooms and bullying them into the attic or the top floor of said schools or whatnot, and of course these protests got pretty daggone ugly, it's no longer a protest. As a matter of fact, there's a debate going on right now about this individual that you guys are seeing right here in the B-roll footage about whether he should be deported or not, given the fact that he is a green card holder, but given the fact that he kind of helped organize these protests and they got out of hand because of him. I don't think that deportation might be a little bit light on him. I think a different punishment should be considered, but that's just me. And the worst people in the world are out here right now defending him. And also at the same time, and we may get to them a little bit later on because I do have a video planned on a little bit later on this week about how it is the whole anti-Semitism thing, if you really and truly think about it, is just kind of a grift. Please ignore well, screw it. I'm just going to keep on going because obviously I'm wearing a Duke hooded sweatshirt and obviously blue and white, but there's some black there too. So yeah, to the Free Palestine crowd, fuck you. But still, the point is this right here. If you really just look into her past, you shouldn't be surprised that when she went to the Daily Wire, when she eventually went to the Daily Wire, and she was eventually fired at the Daily Wire. By the way, many people believe that it was Ben Shapiro who had her fired. It really actually was not. It was actually Caleb Robinson. And everybody believes it was because of her views on Israel. Yet at the exact same time, they've got somebody who works at the Daily Wire, Mr. Matt Walsh, who's also very, very critical of U.S. involvement with Israel, which is another dead giveaway that she was probably fired for something else. I personally think it was the Bridget McCrone stuff because she did eventually do a documentary piece on Bridget McCrone. But I also think it was her connections to Andrew Tate. I borrowed this one from Too Lazy to Try. Let's watch this.
So I was thinking, why would Candace want to be around somebody like this? I mean, even if these tweets are 4 or 5 years ago, if you're going to be calling everybody degenerates and try to call out how bad adult content is and everything, doing it with Andrew and Tristan Tate probably isn't the best idea. But then I started to put the pieces together, and I realized Candace actually met Tate around this time, like when he's putting out tweets like this is when they first met. And she met him through her husband, who had already been good friends with Tate, and he said they go way back, and he said he knows Tate really well. And if you're not familiar with her husband, George Farmer, he's a British aristocrat. Like his dad's a British lord, and his family's worth a ton of money, and he apparently inherited like $70 million.
Interviewed Andrew Tate.
Long time.
I know, it's been a very long time.
You've known Andrew Tate for a number of years. You were just with him for that interview.
Yeah, I've known Andrew for many, many years. I've known Andrew since before Andrew was Andrew. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's a great guy. He really is, and he's a wonderful guy in many ways. Like all humans, he's flawed.
As I was having this dinner with my husband and his friend, Andrew Tate was there. I had no idea who he was. This is kind of before he really took off on the internet. I had my assistant at the time with me who happened to be Romanian. She's born in Romania, speaks Romanian, happened to have been in the United States. She spent a lot of the time that we were there.
That's Candace's husband, George Farmer. Now, guys, there's a lot more that I could put inside this video that's not connected to that video, which I'm going to save a little bit later on for the whole grift portion, because there's going to be a video coming out tomorrow on Friday on why it is this entire thing, really for the most part, is kind of a sad grift. Yes, there are people in that group that are 100% totally evil. However, there are also people connected to the other side. I mentioned Ben Shapiro, who, by the way, his loyalty to America hinges on our support for said nation. I am pro-Israel myself. However, I'm pro-Israel more in the sense of who threw the first rock on October the 7th. I'm pro-Israel more in the point of my own personal Christianity, but I do believe that America should come first. Yes, we could talk about the blessing of Israel, all that type of stuff there. He who blesses Israel is much, much more successful. There's got a lot to do with it as well, but I just figured I would throw that out there to the pro-Israel crowd so that way they would know that I'm not a shill. Because there is some people on that side of the aisle, Rabbi Shmuley in particular, who, by the way, we all sided with Candace on, that probably aren't exactly the best examples to represent their position. I mean, seriously, the guy sells sex toys and he's a rabbi, just saying. But This right here alone doesn't really establish a whole lot, but we'll get down this a little bit further. So Andrew Tate has got connections to George Farmer, her husband. So you might think to yourself that maybe Andrew might have something on George. We'll get to that here in a second. But speaking of the whole anti-Semitism thing, speaking of that there, this right here is something I want to very, very briefly touch. So the other day, Andrew Tate went on the Full Send podcast, and, well...
So let's analyze this. Free speech. This is an interesting conversation because America believes that as free speech. It doesn't. But every single country in the world has things you cannot talk about. Every single country in the world has off-limit topics. Mm-hmm. In Russia, it's Putin. In the Middle East, it's Islam. In Turkey, it's Erdogan. If you talk against them, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. Do you know what the American one is?
What, speaking out against the Dems?
Speaking out against the Jews. If you speak out against the Jews in America, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. So every single country has their off-limit topics. So there's no such thing as free speech anywhere. But that is...
And Candace Owens would go on Theo Von and basically allege that Israel is a safe haven for... Well, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard. I want to say this really quick, though, before we go any further, and it will come back up again in another video. To the people who believe that it's a safe haven for said individual people, I need you to know something right now. And there was a thread that I saw. I read the thread and I went and looked at a couple of their cases. I noticed that all of these men who fled from the United States to said nation for allegedly being accused of, we'll just say PDFing, they were all accused. Now, am I trying to defend them? No, I think those people should be locked up. Which is exactly why it is that I am telling you right now that that's actually our fault, because they had been accused, in some cases even been arrested and then let go by us. Or they got out on a bail and then went to said nation that we don't have a treaty with. Which, of course, also goes back to the whole why are we supporting this nation issue, which, of course, I've said it's a morality issue. The fact of the matter is that those people that you're accusing this nation of harboring, they were people that were let go by us who, quite frankly, we should have locked up. So, therefore, the failure is really on us. Seriously, you have a man who's guilty of a crime, or you have a man who's being accused of a crime, and you have a pretty strong case on them, you do not need to let them leave the country. You do not need to provide an avenue for them to leave the country. I'm just simply saying that they committed the crime here in the United States. They should probably do their time here in the United States. Just saying. Still, though, the point is this right here. People looked at this and they got across this video and they thought obviously some very, very weird stuff was going on with Candace. And of course, what Andrew Tate was saying there earlier about how it is that you're not allowed to criticize the group. I'm here to tell you guys right now that in reality, it's really more what Laura Loomer said in her Twitter exchange with Candace Owens that I'm kind of sharing with you guys across in the B-roll footage. If you want to pause and read these Twitter exchanges, you can. I'm not going to be reading any tweets or anything anytime soon because my reading is absolutely horrible. There may be a change in how I present this content here in the future. I'll have an update for you guys over the weekend, but we shall wait till then. The point is this right here. What Laura Loomer was trying to say to Candace was, if anything, you might want to point your ire at far leftist and left-wing, well,
the Jews,
rather than an entire ethnic group or nation. Yes, I do know about the ADL and how bad the ADL is. You have heard me talk about them before, and don't get me started. Anti-Defamation League is ran by a bunch of ardent leftists. That's the problem. You see, we're not differentiating between the two. That right there is what the hell is going on here. Also, something else too was she went on Theo Von. She also wanted to point out this article that, I say article because it came from Wikipedia, which I find funny. I find hilarious because the same people who say that Wikipedia is not a good source constantly reference Wikifrickipedia to get their point across. Ian Carroll is one of the worst offenders. We shall talk about him a little bit later on this week. But the point is this right here. During that bit with Theo Von, which I think is just content creators not being very bright, not knowing how to ask questions, she brought up this thing between Kennedy, the Kennedy assassination, and of course the guy whose last name is with E, who definitely didn't kill himself. But the thing is this right here. She brought this up, the tensions that apparently Israel's prime minister at the time, the president, was having with President Kennedy, former President Kennedy. And yet next thing you know, you get this conspiracy theory rabbit hole that goes all the way down to who the hell shot Kennedy, when in reality it's pretty daggone obvious who the hell did it, and no, it was not Oswald. Yes, I know that YouTube will probably limit the ads on this video, but by God, we are already more than halfway through with this video. The point that I'm trying to make is this right here. If you go back and you look at this woman's past, what she's doing right now, the takes that she has right now should not actually surprise you. She's a well-known chameleon. Like I said before, she was a part of a group to dox people. Then she became Red Pill Black, an ardent leftist, who, by the way, exposed the fact that she was very, very much a suburbanite, raised in a very, very wealthy home. Something that Destiny, during his and Candace Owens' debate, failed to point out because Destiny did not do his research on her. And I remember busting out laughing during the debate, not only because she was putting him in his place and telling the truth about him, but because this great debater on the left somehow or another found a way to point out when talking about going to school and being able to afford school that she actually came from a wealthy family and could have afforded it on her own without government assistance. But let me get back on track. The point is this right here. They provide a Wikipedia article to prove their point, but it doesn't prove anything because the Wikipedia article, if you actually read it, actually proves the exact opposite. It's like I've said before, for the most part, this entire thing is a grift, but of course we shall come back to it. But about not being able to do anything as far as career is concerned, Andrew Tate is a multimillionaire. Andrew Tate, and this one right here is the one that really bothered me the other day, and I had to get this from Tim Pool.
Nobody had an issue with you, okay, despite your case going on, until you hopped on to Piers Morgan on October 9th and said that you were pro-Palestine and
called my side until that exact day. And after that day, they all instantly turned on me. The second I said we shouldn't be blowing children to pieces, the second I criticized Israel, that was the day where I lost all of the support from the conservative side. And
was that not me as well? Have we not seen this trend happening over and over and over again? Candace Owens was totally fine. She was never considered anti-Semitic and Adolf Hitler. All of a sudden, she speaks up about a human right violation and says too many Palestinian children are dying. And what happened to me overnight? They gave me anti-Semite of the year. Every friend. Oh my God, something.
Well, I got to pause there. I'm a little more agnostic on this one. What I will say is Candace has one of the biggest podcasts in the world. She's not being completely shut out, but she does have a lot of people coming after her.
Told you guys before, that's a lie. People were already turning on Tate back in 2018, 2019, 2020. And as far as the persona non grata stuff, well, I would say he was persona non grata when he got banned off of YouTube back in 2021. But he got banned off of YouTube over his COVID stances, not his Israel stances. He was still allowed on Rumble, okay? And while I disagree with the man's takes on said topic, I also understand that when he put up there, Allah demands justice on October the 7th, when that attack was going on. By the way, we've completely lost our nerve when we're siding with the terrorists who attacked innocents at a music festival. And then, of course, he also went along with the whole line of we can attack you, but you're not allowed to attack me. That's a leftist tactic. All right, that right there is what the hell ardent leftists do, which tells me that deep down inside, he's no real conservative. Still, though, the point is this right here. The connections run deep, and at the end of the day, if you actually look at it, you can begin to see that at the end of the day, it's just one great big giant grift, and you should not be surprised by the recent stances that she's taken. But I did say we were going to come back to the whole too lazy to try bit. Well, let's get back to that.
I think he's a pimp in Romania.
I used sex as a tool to make women love me so they'd obey me and live in my house and make me money. That's what I wanted. So I was a pimp in that sense.
I said, what? And she's like, no, I think he's like actually a pimp in Romania.
By taking girls who didn't know how to be effective on webcam, girls who had never done webcam before, girls who didn't have the equipment, didn't have the know-how, didn't have the will, didn't have the premises, didn't have the ability to make money with this exchange.
Off camera, I think he'll be the first person to admit that. Like he's
I created a system that allowed me to convince girls to do this, allowed me to retain 100% control of their income. I know how to make sure the girl can't run away.
I know Andrew pretty well, and as I said, I know that he's full of flaws.
And obviously Andrew claims he's changed now and he's a better person. But I mean, back then, which wasn't that long ago, I think just 4 or 5 years ago, he was clearly a terrible, awful human being. There's no way around it. And you'd wonder why somebody like Candace's husband would want to be friends with somebody like that.
Now, a lot of the stuff that you guys have heard, you've seen on Twitter of Andrew Tate talking about 15-year-old girls and stuff, that was being played in the B-roll footage. Now, I always said in another video that I did not endorse the crap he was talking about as far as the women were concerned or the cam girl stuff. I do believe that he has obviously made some adjustments in life because he's probably gotten a lot smarter. And I do think that a man's past, while it is important, is also something that, quite frankly, can be forgiven or should be forgiven if said conversion or whatnot is for real. Which also brings me to another point, and I'll get back to Candace here in a second. It's this right here. I saw a tweet the other day from another content creator where they basically said that the sad part about this is that Andrew, you wouldn't accept Andrew Tate if he was to convert to Christ. I think I responded to that tweet. By the way, the individual I'm talking about, somebody I do respect, I said, it's not that. I think it's the fact that it wouldn't be considered to be believable because Andrew Tate was an atheist and he was a Christian. Then he quit Christianity, became an atheist again, and then turned right back around and joined Islam, became a Muslim. Nothing's genuine about the guy, and I've talked about this in a couple of the videos. It's all about the grift. It's all about getting empowered. That is what these cliques do. Like what's going on in Florida right now with him launching a case after he said that he was going to be leaving on the Patrick Bet David podcast on March the 23rd. And if you guys recall correctly, during that same said conversation, he brought up Zelensky and said that Zelensky would be, but then turn right back around and say, I need to watch what I say because Ukraine operates rather heavily inside of Romania.
I returned to the Ukrainian border on the 23rd of March, but obviously, truthfully, I'm quite outraged. The fact that even at the beginning of the clip, he had his arms crossed and incompetent, you add in the fact he's likely a drug addict, and you have the train crash we just saw there. That's what I think happened.
Where are you getting the drug addict component?
I have to go back to Romania on March 23rd, and the Ukrainians operate heavily inside of Romania. I don't want to catch a bullet. If I do catch it, it's them. But I think everybody knows he's a cocaine addict.
It seems to me like the guy actually enjoys the Matrix. He keeps on saying that the Matrix is attacking him, but yet every time I turn around, he keeps on antagonizing it, just saying. But the connections here make you wonder exactly how deep it is, how deep that relationship, how deep the ties are between said individuals. Does Andrew have anything on George Farmer? Well, let's continue a little further.
But one time on Twitter, Andrew explained why people really wanted to be friends with him. And he said, everybody wants to be friends with the pimp. Doubt me? Epstein had access to pussy. Look at his friends list. It's basic human psychology. I have the assets every man who's not a hater wishes they had. And the next best thing to being me is knowing me. And if you remember when Tate first got arrested, everybody started comparing him to Epstein. And you would think, it's just people that hate him. Of course, they're going to do that. But it was actually people on the right that were making that comparison to try to defend him, kind of. People are like, Andrew Tate got arrested before any of Epstein's clients. Let that sink in. And whether Andrew Tate is guilty or not, they skip the entire Epstein client list because he's their enemy and the people on that list aren't. And the media is distracting us with Andrew Tate, so a lawsuit against JP Morgan for aiding Epstein's trafficking can fly under the radar. And I'm not saying any of these people are involved with Tate at all, but I think it's just funny they're saying this because it actually sounds like they're using Epstein to distract from Tate. And then also, if you get arrested and everybody's like, yeah, well, what about Epstein? What does that say? That is not a good look, especially if you consider Tristan Tate is being accused of trafficking a minor, and Andrew has professed his love for very young girls openly.
This next bit is rather long, about 1 minute and 30 seconds, but I'm going to let it play all the way through. I'll come back on the end, give you guys my thoughts, and close down the video. Of course, I'll get to everything he said here in a second, but I want to throw this out here before I get to said thoughts. And how about this right here? It was the Trump administration that was pressured supposedly to loosen the restrictions on Andrew in Romania after he was acquitted. The Trump administration the first time around was very big on enforcing the human trafficking laws to actually go get these human traffickers. Okay, we were hearing about it all the time. So this right here is one hell of a 180 if you ask me. If, say, you got somebody who was a sex trafficker at one time or former sex trafficker suddenly is in the United States, yet, like I said before, very controversial figure, not actually calling him that, but he has been acquitted of a lot of these cases. But at the same time, though, I also recently found out that some of those cases are actually open down in Florida, like 4 particular cases where girls have not recanted their statements. But the point is this right here. It's very possible that people like Alina Habba, who's a part of the Trump administration, may have honeypotted him, gotten the restrictions loose, allowed him to get here to the United States, and maybe it's possible that may be a sting operation going on Tate, because Trump was asked by Andrew Tate, and Andrew Tate gave his response. Of course, he was responding to it on the Patrick Bet David podcast, where, if I remember correctly, he basically said Trump is a G, he's a gangster. That's how you answer that question, by saying you don't know anything. It's possible that Trump may not know anything. It could have been Richard Grenell. It could have been somebody else in the administration who might have put pressure on Romania to release him for the purposes of, I don't know, maybe arresting him or trying him here. I mean, go back to what I showed you guys earlier where he said he was leaving on March the 23rd. Why the fuck would he announce that shit? So I'm holding out till March 23rd to see if anything happens. So we may be revisiting this video again. But let me give you my thoughts really quick on everything that you guys just heard. Basically, the assertion here is that the real trafficker is Tate and not the guy with the E. And by the way, they always use the nation of Israel as their scapegoat to go towards. As a matter of fact, I'll link that bit right there that I showed you guys on the B-roll footage where the guy basically she's talking to basically says, yeah, they always seem to get scapegoated about all the issues. By the way, the guy she was talking to, pro-Israel, but also a Muslim, yeah, I'm just simply telling you right now that you've even got those who are anti-Hamas who have joined the side of the pro-Israel side, like, for example, the guy that Dr. Phil platformed. Yeah, even they're starting to say, yeah, this right here is getting a little bit out of line, and maybe we're wrong for trying to destroy a nation that, quite frankly, we've always hated, people that we've always hated ever since the beginning of time. You see, I told you the Israel-Jewish shield was going to come out of him. Oh, shut the fuck up. I don't really truly care at this point in time. I'm just giving you guys basic information. The point is this right here. I don't fully agree that that they use the guy with the E and the guy with the T in the last part of his name as the true trafficker. I don't really believe that. Okay? But I do believe that there are obviously diversions going on and there are obviously other ops going on here. And I personally believe that Candace Owens is the perfect vessel to do that. Or maybe the imperfect vessel to do that. You see, it's possible that maybe Candace's husband does, in fact, have something on him that might be incriminating, at least as far as his family is concerned. Some people have suggested it could be maybe he's secretly gay. Who the hell knows? But still, at the same time, though, it is kind of odd, and I'm too lazy to try a search in his video, that anytime Andrew Tate's name comes up or anytime Andrew Tate gets into any kind of shit, she's always very, very quick to jump out and start defending him, almost as if to say she's defending her husband. Yet her husband is somebody who has not actually spoken or spoken out on anything. He's actually been pretty daggone quiet. It's almost like maybe she's going out of her way to cover up something that could be hidden that, quite frankly, she doesn't want to get out. Also, something else, too, about their relationship. There's also a bit that you'll see in that video, which I'll link in the description box, where her husband says that we weren't doing anything romantic, but I just straight up asked her to marry me, and she just said yes. She's got 2 kids with him, yeah, but still at the same time, when you actually look at it, when you actually think about it, there's definitely some weirdness going on as far as this connection is concerned. But then we get to the whole topic of what actually ends up happening to Candace. Now, guys, I want to say this one more time to end this video. I don't believe Candace Owens got fired from the Daily Wire because of her takes on Israel. I don't believe she did. She got a lot of criticism, but once again, though, Matt Walsh is critical of Israel as well, and he's still there. She didn't even get fired by Shapiro. She didn't get fired by Jeremy Boy. She got fired by Caleb Robinson. They're the ones who ultimately chose to let her go. I believe that she got fired because of her connections to Tate. I think she got fired because whatever the hell the connections are, especially with her husband, is pretty daggone deep. I think that is the reason why it is that she got fired. That is the reason why it is that she got let go. Whatever the hell it was, the Daily Wire, the people at the Daily Wire were not comfortable about, and they ultimately let her go. Now, what does this have to do with Candace? Well, it has to do with the fact that Candace is, for the most part, while very, very much a big YouTube channel, big content creator on this platform, she's probably on her last legs because there's really nobody else for her to grift off of, except one group. One group. Once she's pissed off all the conservatives, especially white Christian conservatives, at some point in time, she may find herself grifting back to where she started, which, of course, is outright ardent leftism. I'm calling it right now, and you guys can come back and you guys can revisit this video at a later date. Go back to what I said about Andrew Tate. The minute he put up that whole Allah demands justice tweet, eventually he had to take it down. It goes back to we are allowed to attack you, but you are not allowed to attack us. That right there. That, and I would say accuse those of what you are guilty of yourself, are the 2 most common tactics that the left loves to use. Yeah, he talked about masculinity and crap, but believe it or not, at one point in time, the left could actually have a claim towards masculinity. Very, very odd. They're just not masculine anymore. Still, though, that right there remains to be seen. If you guys want to argue about what I just said in the comments section, especially with me, I'm all for it. So make sure you guys leave your comments. The point is this right here. Not too many more places for her to grift off of, but I think that the last grift that she has is probably going to be towards the left. So go ahead and get ready for it. And as far as the connections to Farmer are concerned, even though I already spent a very, very long time pretentiously talking about this, only to come back to this conclusion, yeah, there's definitely something under all that. Now, what it is, on the other hand, we really truly don't know. But I got a funny feeling we're going to find out someday. Make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I'm pretty sure the ads will be removed off this video because I mentioned
the Jews
over the course of this video. Even if it was from a more pro perspective, they still find a way to do that. So make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share for the algorithm, and I'll see you guys later.